Well, hello, 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 everyone, and thank you for stopping by on Let's Talk About It, Steph. It has been a very interesting week, and I hope you all are having a wonderful Wednesday evening. It is evening, y'all. I can't even keep up with my days these days. But I do have my co-host coming on tonight, Del Frey. He will be on tonight, and I hope you guys are ready for some of these hot topics that we got going on tonight. We're going to talk about Elon Musk not backing Trump. We're going to talk about concerns over the attack over Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP programs. It's still an issue, and we're going to continue on talking about it until they make sure that they take care of the people that matters the most, which is someone in our family or our neighbors. You just never know. So we also going to talk about this THC that the House decided they want to push through, and right now it should be sitting on Texas Governor Greg Abbott's desk for him to either sign it or veto it. And a lot of people are hoping that he veto this because it affects a lot of people right about now who needs that. And we're going to talk about if you like reality people and all these reality shows, then you're gonna love hearing about this because me personally, I can't make this stuff up. But Trump just pardoned Todd and Julie Chrissy. They had some type of reality show. He's very comical, but they kind of like did some tax evasion kind of things and wound up in jail. So I guess we pardon crooks as usual, business as usual, but we're going to definitely get into it. But first, I am going to bring up my sidekick, my person, Dale Frey.
Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you, Steph. It's good to be back. Sorry, I know I think I missed the past 2 weeks or so. I was out traveling for a bit. I was out in Florida. The temperature is about the same as it is here in Texas, but a lot more humid. I tell you, they don't just have air conditioning; they must also have dehumidifiers over there because when you open up your hotel room door, you feel the environment as it hits you. It's really quite something. Um, but yeah, my sister actually just gave birth to twins actually last Wednesday. She was up in New England area in Boston. It was good to see my mom and my aunt over in Florida. But I'm back now, and there's definitely a lot going on in Texas. I will also remind everyone, depending upon where you live in Texas, you may have an election going on right now. I will say this at the end too, just to make sure everyone remembers. You may have a municipal runoff election. For example, in Frisco, we have a city council runoff election, and some areas of Texas has the same. Now, early voting has just ended. I think it was yesterday, but there is one more chance to vote. And I think, if I recall correctly, that's this coming Saturday, but I'll actually pull my notes and confirm that. But yeah, just want to push that out there and want to say it's good to be back. Good to be back, Stephanie.
Well, it's always great to see you, and I'm glad you're back and had an opportunity to spend time with family because right about now, we all need some of that family love. This past weekend, I went back to my home state. One of my best friends' husband turned 60. And
Nice.
Donald, happy birthday. I know today is your birthday, so happy birthday to you. It was amazing. He had this cowboy theme and it was straight up Saints territory. So it was very interesting to see how all that blended together. And I have to give a shout out to his wife Shantae and his sis and her sister Chantel, who has Peacock event center out there in Alexandria, and it was very beautiful. So if y'all are out there in the Louisiana area, especially in Alexandria, and you want to do an event, please reach out to Chantel Warner. She will be happy to assist you in whatever your needs are. So I just wanted to put that plug out there right there. So, oh my goodness. Well, it has been a crazy week. Very crazy.
It has. It has. I was going to say it's been so crazy. I don't know which thing you want to talk about first. Was that the oh? Is that the the OBA, the OBBBA, is that what they're calling it? The One Beautiful Bill Act?
Oh my goodness. So I woke up one day, of course, and I realized that Elon Musk seemed to be a little bit mad. And I said, oh, let me open this up and see why is Elon mad today. And he sat up there. Of course, he's been really talking a lot of smack about the administration, about Trump, and saying basically that a lot of the stuff that he's doing is stupid. Now, didn't he put a lot of money into him to get him in that position and put this Doge people in positions? Well, right now, he's a little bit irritated and says that this big better deal is bad for business. So let's talk about it, Dale.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because this is a Republican bill, by the way, and by Republican bill, the author is Jody Arrington, a Republican from Texas, and so to see Elon stand against it, I will explain why he's actually doing it. But it is interesting, as you said, that Elon Musk has been supporting the Republican Party. He's poured a lot of money into that. He's also poured a lot of money into Wisconsin, and it did not go anywhere. Thank goodness for that. But he's pouring money in. He's becoming one of the top Republican donors. And Elon has said, I have in my notes, he called this a quote disgusting abomination end quote. Now, why is it that Elon cares about this? Let's be very clear here. There's actually three different reasons, but the top one is that because this will hurt the EV or the electronic vehicle industry. That's really what's going on here. Elon Musk only cares about his own personal bottom line. This so-called one beautiful bill will hurt tax credits on cars, particularly electronic vehicles. So that will hurt Tesla, and that's why he cares. Elon's already been a pretty grumpy as it is, anyways, because he's not getting what he wanted. He basically, as you said, poured all this money to the Republican Party. But despite that, he's upset over the withdrawal of his ally, Jared Isaacman, in his nomination for the NASA administrator. And so he didn't get what he wanted there. And he's also pretty miffed about the FAA's rejection of using Starlink for their air traffic controllers. So Elon invested his money into this administration, and he's not getting what he paid for, right? And on top of on top of the FAA not using Starlink, and on top of his buddy Jarek Isaacman not being not being able to become the NASA administrator. This is like just like the third strike with him, and something that will really sting him real hard is hurting the tax credits on the electronic vehicles because Tesla, it's already been losing value already
Yeah.
between the people kind of doing some attacks on his Tesla buildings and versus his own rhetoric that he's given. That is devalued the Tesla stock, this is going to hurt him even more. So he's already down for the count. And so this will just be like another hit to Tesla. I don't know if it will necessarily be the final nail in the coffin. I kind of doubt that, but it's definitely a hit. And Elon is clearly not getting what he wanted. I do laugh a little bit because I would just say to Elon, if he was sitting next to me, I would say, brother, looks like you didn't realize the leopards will eat your face because that is what happened. He invested into this administration. He did not get it back. I will also say that this is very reminiscent to me on how he has in the past gone against the Republican Party for his own personal self interests. Let us not forget that the general census, the general feelings that Republicans give, is to be strongly against almost any immigration of any kind. And one
Mhm.
thing they've been going against for quite some time is H-1B visas. But Elon Musk, back in December of 2024, he said he would, quote, go to war, end quote, to defend H-1B visas. Now, in reality, this is because he cares about his personal bottom line for his companies, because H-1B visas helps his industry and his corporation.
Mhm.
And that's why he is seemingly uh, going against Republicans. What's interesting here and what we're seeing here is that it seems that while he invested so much into this party, he doesn't seem to realize that his own personal gains don't necessarily always align with the Republican Party. the Republican Party, like the H-1B visa thing, they are against any type of immigration and visas of any kind. That
That's
is
true.
not in his best interest. Likewise, for a long time, the Republican Party was all about these gas vehicles. It's manly to own a gas vehicle. They said, if you go in an electronic vehicle, that it's wimpy or something like that. The Republican Party has been against electronic vehicles for quite some time. And so Elon doesn't seem to quite understand that his own personal best interests don't necessarily align with the Republican Party. They don't really align with Democrats either, because Democrats want the rich people to pay, just their fair share of taxes.
Mhm.
Democrats want to get rid of tax loopholes. So obviously, Elon Musk would never associate with the Democratic Party. However, his personal corporate self interests also do not align with the Republican Party either. And that is what we're seeing right now. And that is why we're seeing yet another backlash of Elon Musk calling this the OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a quote disgusting abomination.
I agree. You know what? Well, I guess I'm live in this recording. I have to actually agree with Elon on this because it's one of the most dumbest bills that they could ever come up with. It has so many different amendments in there that will affect so many people, to where it makes no sense. On the business side of it, it hurts. It hurts, especially with this tariff thing. It hurts. I've been seeing people who have Teslas and they are taking the emblems off of their vehicles and stuff like that. So they're driving around with not a you don't know what it is unless you look at their tires, but they're like disforming their vehicles and stuff because they don't want to be associated with Teslas, and people making fun of them about it. But at the end of the day, Elon Musk is a businessman, and he's gonna make a business decision that affects his bottom pocket where it can grow instead of him losing millions of dollars like he has been doing. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. I don't know if this is one of those things that you throw a rock and hide your hand. If that's what he's doing, because keep in mind, he invested in Trump, and he basically threw money away. I'm like, I think Dell, I don't know about you, but he could have threw some of that money towards our campaigns around here because we definitely need it over here. But I'm not gonna sell my soul.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny when you mention that, because it always makes me think of the narrative that Republicans give about Democrats. Republicans want to paint this picture that Democrats are rich and we're highly supported and all that, and that the Republicans are the underdogs. They want to claim that Carl Schwab and the New World Order is funding all these Democrats. They talk about all the money that's poured into politics by Carl Schwab. But I ran for state senate and I never got any dollars from Carl Schwab. I believe you ran for the state senate too, and I'm pretty sure you haven't received any money from Carl Schwab either. And yet
I,
we do see lots of people getting funded by Elon Musk, and also particularly here in Texas, Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks.
right.
So it's interesting how, everything that the Republicans claim that Democrats do, they're actually guilty of themselves. That
Exactly.
in Elon Musk is turning into yet another one of those financial influencers in politics. But it is interesting, and it does feel a little bit good to see that he is still not getting necessarily what he wants, to the point where he will at least sometimes voice a correct and reasonable statement, such as calling this bill a quote, a disgusting abomination. Because it is.
It is. Yeah, I have to agree with him. It's some things I hate to say it's some things that I do agree with him with, and that's one of the main ones. That's a disgusting bill that is not going to benefit anyone. It's not even going to benefit Trump, but he's too what the word is. He is too stuck in himself to realize that he's damaging his own pocket. The only way I can see Trump actually making money off of this is him putting hotels in other countries, because right about now he's killed our country slowly but surely with all these stupid bills that he's coming up with, especially like the ones with the steel, because we get our steel like from Canada. I'm like, I don't understand why he doesn't get it. We import things over here just like we import things over in other countries. It hurts us if we can't afford to pay for the product that we're getting from overseas, because we're going to have to pay a higher price on it. Plus, not only are we going to have to pay a higher price on it, you're going to wind up having to either you're going to eat the cost so you don't have to send it to your customers, or your customers, which are us, will have to wind up having to eat that cost up until we get this man out of office. Because at the end of the day, he's hurting the country and he's tearing this country up from limb by limb. And I don't know how they're going to stop it, but I think Elon Musk is rethinking about his investment. He's probably going to do like a tax write off of what he did for Trump. And I really think that if Trump continues on this pathway with him, I think Elon's going to tell all the secrets, because you know there got to be some secrets out there. So I think Elon's going to wind up getting so mad to where he's going to talk about some things. But I bet you he's not going to say anything about this past election, because he knows if he says anything that they did anything shady, that guess who's going to wind up going to jail.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is difficult to speculate on this, but one thing that I am thinking to myself is that, well, Elon Musk, he's still going to have a lot of money. I guess what is his next move would be the question. Well,
He
it's not.
has a city.
Sorry.
He has a city that he's building down in
Oh,
South
okay.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of trying to apply more political influence, uh, he went in and he basically was Doge for a bit, and his whole intention there was to rip apart the parts of government that would, regulate industry and things like that, and keep them in line, because he doesn't want to have any regulations and things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know if he really knows like any secrets per se that he can expose. I almost kind of wonder if it even really matters, because the Twitterverse and the right wing media, they already believe in nonsense conspiracy theories as it is right now. Like their Overton window is completely broken to the point that you don't really need actual honest secrets anymore. You could just make stuff up. And I am kind of surprised. I would have thought that by now Elon Musk would have leveraged Twitter more. He purchased Twitter, and he did that intentionally in order to have a PR or propaganda outlet of his own that he can manipulate. But it is
Yeah.
interesting that Donald Trump is Im- immune to that a little bit, because Donald Trump, I'm not sure if he uses Twitter or not, but I know he uses Truth Social. Like Donald Trump created his own media system, so he's not at the whim of Elon Musk, like the way like Alex Jones at Infowars is, for example. And by the listeners, the audience who don't understand what I'm saying by that, Alex Jones and a lot of right wing individuals like Nick Fuentes, etc., were banned from Twitter a very long time ago. Elon Musk, one by one, was able to decide who he would let back on the platform. And since he let Alex Jones and uh, Nick Fuentes back on the platform, now they are very, 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 very uh, pro Elon. They are very pro Elon because they have to be, because within the attention economy that Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes and the others like Laura Loomer, etc., they thrive in the attention economy, and their attention is contingent upon keeping their Twitter accounts. And so they are financially somewhat enslaved to Elon Musk. But interestingly enough, Donald Trump is not, since he uses Truth Social specifically. It's an interesting dynamic. Elon, I'm not quite sure what his next move can be, other than just spewing propaganda and lashing out. That's something he's clearly doing right now. But aside from that, I'm not quite sure what else he can do. But we will see. We will see. I know he does have a city that he's building here in Texas, so he did get
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, Elon's pretty pissed off for very valid reasons, like I talked about the FAA not using Starlink and his ally not being set as the NASA administrator, and then with this latest one big beautiful bill thing that will hurt Tesla. So he's definitely agitated for logical reasons that do make sense.
Yes. Well, I don't know what his plans are. He's probably going to go and try to primary those that voted for this, is from what I have read earlier. And as far as him backing any Democrats or liberals, I don't think he's going to do that. I don't. But you just never know what's going to wind up happening with this too, because it's like a bad marriage going down south, and they trying to bring everybody with them. So we definitely gonna keep our eyes and ears open and see what's going to come up with this. So I don't know. We'll find out sooner than we know. But we're going to move on to the next thing, and we're going to go back to talking about our healthcare up on the attack. As usual, it's almost like they got their foot on our neck, and they're really refusing to basically help the people. And the people are the ones that put these Congress and senators in office, and they're basically trying to make sure that they continue to cut Medicaid, cut Medicare, and get rid of SNAP program. So whoever's down there in Houston, they need that SNAP program, for their kids out there, because they're ran the Houston ISD is ran by the state. So Greg Abbott don't believe in giving out money too much. So the kids are going to starve. Here it is summer, the kids are not in school, and they don't have, the parents are not able to afford to take care of the things that they normally would have with that extra snap on there, and that affects everything. It really does. And it also affects the people that's like have grocery stores and stuff. They depend on certain things that their customers buy off of Snap. And some things they have taken completely off of, like soda, cakes and different little things like that, different snacks and stuff. They pulled that completely off of Snap. So we are in a crap load of trouble, and I'm gonna tell you, because like right now, thank God I have personal insurance and stuff to where for my job, to where I can go to have see my doctors and stuff. But it's even hard just having insurance to go see your doctor. I can't even imagine not having Medicaid or Medicare, and you need to make an appointment because they're not going to see you unless you have cash in hand. So who has that type of money?
Yeah, I will say I was almost a little bit distracted a bit because you brought up Houston ISD, and every time someone brings that up, I say, "Oh, are you familiar with a man named Mike Miles? I believe he was the superintendent of Dallas ISD, I think, and I believe he was kicked out for legitimate reasons, and so he just relocated to Houston ISD. And I feel so bad for our fellow Houstonians because I have seen a lot of people on social media really railing against Mike Miles, but I don't want to get off topic. We're talking about, I believe, the Medicaid, the Medicare, and the SNAP stuff. So this is it called OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act? This thing,
Yes, it's a
I
part of it.
okay.
You
So
see how it's affecting everything?
yeah, well, it does quite a few things. Like for example, it's adding on to the work requirements in order to get certain benefits. For example, it's mandating that able-bodied adults work, volunteer, or attend school for at least 80 hours per month to maintain eligibility for some things. For like Medicaid, for example, it's also for Medicaid, it's increasing the verification rate of eligibility checks to the point where it can lead to frustration and things like that. And the Congressional Budget Office looked at this stuff amongst all the other things in the so-called OBA, One Big Beautiful Bill, and they said these changes could result in up to 10.9 million people losing their health insurance coverage for Medicaid. It's really ridiculous for SNAP. They're extending they too are also extending the work requirements there for SNAP. They're requiring that individuals age 55 to 64, including parents of children, um, uh, they're expanding the work requirements there. And professionals who have looked into this are estimating that this can nearly affect 4 million individuals who could potentially lose their SNAP benefits. And I want to go back to the Medicaid thing too, because when you reduce, rather when you increase the work requirements for Medicaid. And when you make it more stressful by making the eligibility checks far more frequent, when people lose their Medicaid, that also affects uh, Medicare in general, because there's a lot of people who have dual eligibility. You know, we have Medicare, we have Medicaid, and there are people who qualify for both. And there are a lot of people who need the dual eligibility stuff, and people are going to be losing that. So, you know, this has been an ongoing thing that we've been seeing with the Republican Party. The Republican Party, guys, they do not have a plan for actually fixing our healthcare system. If you want any proof, just look at the last debate that Donald Trump had back when he was running to be the president. He was asked, he was standing there with, it wasn't Joe Biden at the time, it was Kamala Harris he was debating. And in that presidential debate, he was asked what his plans were for fixing healthcare. He was asked if he had a plan. And he said, quote, "I have concepts of a plan," end quote. And he did not go into any specifics. Republicans have no concept on how to fix healthcare. I'll give you another example. Previously, when Donald Trump had his trifecta, the first time he became president, Republicans had the state house, I'm sorry, Republicans had the congressional house, the congressional Senate, and Donald Trump was president. At that time, in the first Trump presidency, Republicans were sitting there thinking to themselves, what are we going to do? Are we going to repeal Obamacare, or are we going to repeal and replace Obamacare? They spent almost the entire session going back and forth on this. And in the end of the day, they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball because the best thing that they were able to push forward, the best way that they were going to somehow save money is by pushing for a healthcare system that literally considered rape to be a pre-existing condition. It's
Yeah,
something that
that's
is absolutely ridiculous. And look, I'll be honest with you, if you were to ask a robot that, if you were to ask AI, would that actually save money? Unfortunately, the answer is yes, because the thing is, I think it's a horrible statistic, but I believe that 2/3 of all women will experience sexual assault by the time they finish college. You know, so if you make that a pre-existing condition, yeah, you're going to save the government money because you're taking health care away from so many individuals. That was the best plan the Republican Party could come up with in the first presidential administration under Donald Trump. And you can see this time around that they still don't have it together. They still don't understand how to fix our healthcare system. We Democrats, we have a comprehensive healthcare plan. There's many different kinds from many different Democrats who have come up with different ideas. But the general consensus is we as Democrats demand that we support all pre-existing conditions, and we just make sure that the rich pay their fair share of taxes, and we take that money and fund our healthcare system. We need a socialized medicine because big pharma is far too powerful. So we need to socialize uh, our our medicine, and we need to introduce price caps on these pharmaceutical companies that are price gouging us. That has always been the Democratic platform, to say the least. To say the least, there are some who go even farther, like Bernie Sanders, who wants full health care for all. There are different levels to what different Democrats will say on this, but the general consensus is just make the rich pay their fair share of taxes and support all pre-existing conditions. But Republicans, they have no clue how to actually fix our healthcare system. The only thing they
because they
know how
don't
to do is tear things
understand
down.
it. They
Yeah.
they don't understand it because they have the money to go to the doctor. Like right now, I injured my shoulder, right? Luckily I have insurance, but I'm going through hell just to get my doctors to see me and to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. So there's all kind of red tape that you have to literally go through, and just think, and I have health insurance. The craziest thing is, what about my next door neighbor who may not have health insurance, and you taking away that Medicare that they need? The Republican parties, they're not thinking about the people who put them in office. They're not thinking about that kid, that poor child that's going through cancer treatments and they need the treatments, and you just shut that stuff off because you think, oh, it's just a waste. What is a waste? Giving that child treatment for cancer may save their life so they will be able to have a future, but they don't think like that. One of the, I think it was an Ohio senator, when asked about the Medicaid cuts and Medicare cuts, she says, we're all going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Why
almost
would you
forgot about
say
that one.
something like that?
Yeah, yeah. I forgot to add that one to my notes. That was absolutely crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's just sick. To me, that's sick. Even if she was just saying, "Well, we're all gonna die." No, when they're asking you that question, lady, you don't say, "Well, you're all gonna die," because you giving the context of, "I don't care about you." And basically, she really don't, because when they tried to have her to rebuttal it, she hurry up and got into the elevator. She didn't want to answer. She's like, "Well, we are gonna all die," but you got people that are
Yeah.
sick, and they can't afford to go to the emergency room, because before you get home from the emergency room, that bill has already hit your mailbox waiting for you to send them money, or they're going to send you to the credit union. I mean,
Oh,
to the
yeah.
credit people.
Forget the emergency room. A lot of people, just the ambulance ride alone will just devastate. And we have
Yeah,
people who are working two jobs just to pay rent in our country. So the ambulance ride alone, of course, will just devastate any working class individual that I'm aware of.
yeah, you got to have at least what is, I think it's $500 for a ride. It might be more than that, $500 or $800 just to ride in the ambulance. And if you need it, some people needed to. I know someone that had an accident, and they really needed them to take them to the hospital, and they refused to, and had someone to go drive them to the emergency room because they couldn't afford that bill, you know. But what do you
Yeah.
do?
I will say this, she's not necessarily wrong when she says, well, we're all going to die. But let's look into this a little bit more detail. Do you know what the top two killers of Americans are? What is the top two things that most people in this country are going to die from? The answer is there's almost a tie for first place. It's cancer, and
Hmm.
it's also right behind cancer, but a very close second is heart disease. So the
Exactly.
number one killer in our country that kills most Americans is our health. It's cancer, it's heart disease. And when we have a dysfunctional healthcare system in our country, I can see why. But unfortunately, rather than looking at a healthcare system, rather than acknowledging that the number one killer of Americans is cancer and the number two killer is heart disease, instead, Republicans want to look at the border and claim that it's those immigrants who are killing people. All the time I'm seeing in the headlines nowadays, it seems like I don't know if this is so common around here in Texas. Again, I was in Florida for last week, but I saw constant advertisements on the television by the attorney general uh, talking about how, oh, there's this person who was murdered by an illegal immigrant, and like how they've been captured by ICE and they're being sent away. It's very telling to me that when we see the Republicans and the way they approach healthcare, which they should care about as the one thing that kills most Americans. Again, the number one killer of Americans is cancer, the number two killer is heart disease. It is very telling that they focus more on the immigrants, more in claiming that that is causing all this death and murder and rape.
Well, you know why? Because when people start looking at other people and blaming them for their issues, they don't want to look in the mirror and say that, hey, maybe I'm the problem. They know they're the problem, and they don't want to address it because they may have a son or daughter that's a serial beater or whatever, or maybe themselves. We may have somebody that's sitting in Congress or in the Senate that's beating up on their spouse, you know, or may have somebody that's in their household that is illegal, because everybody an American citizen. We've had somebody in our Congress that had someone that was taking care of their family, and they were not legal, but they get a people like that get a pass, right? But normal people that's trying to do the right thing, and they're getting picked up, like the little 18-year-old guy, young man, who recently got picked up by ISIS. They didn't even identify who they were. They just snatched this guy. The kid is an honor roll student. He's in the band. He's the captain of his soccer team. He is here illegally, right? But it wasn't by his choice. His parents brought him here when he was 4 or 5 years old. And instead of them going after the parent, they went after the son to do what they call entrapment. That is crazy. You
Yeah.
know, so we got a lot of things up under this big bill, whatever bill that Trump came up with this week. It's it's going to hurt a lot of people, and especially when we have our Homeland Security Director that really don't know what she's doing. I don't even know how she got the job, and I really don't care. But she's hurting America, and she's like, we living in a country that I don't no longer recognize anymore. It's almost as if we are living in one of those what do you call those countries?
Um, Not a third world country per se, but I would almost say I remember it's not a prequel, but if you ever watched The Handmaid's Tale,
Yes,
there are
I'm watching it
flashbacks
now.
in The Handmaid's Tale. I'm talking about the show. I don't know if there's a book or not, but I've only seen the show. There are
It's
flashbacks to how things were and used to be normal until the present day timeline within The Handmaid's Tale story. It is a very we are seeing a transformation in our country, and we're seeing it for the worst. Unfortunately, it's very heartbreaking to see, and very trying to say the least.
Yeah, this well, I know they're getting ready to do the final part on the Hands Me Tell, so I'm definitely want to hurry up and catch up so I can see what is going on because we can't make this stuff up, Dale. It's like we have to have people to still continue on fighting for what's right, and we still have to call and email and write our representatives and make sure that they do what they were sent down to DC and in here in Texas down to Austin. So no matter where you're at, stay on top of your representatives and make them do their job. They got to go and vote. And on top of that, I didn't catch this latest name. I didn't write it on my notes, but we have a Democrat person that just switched over to be a Republican because she says that her views does not line up with the Democratic Party anymore. So my thing is, seems like we need to be cleaning house. So not only do the GOP need to clean their own backyard, we also need to clean house and get these fake people out of office. And she needs to be primary. Matter of fact, I feel like they need to have a bill that's put in place. So if anybody hearing me, y'all need to make that happen. They need to put a bill out. If she says, if anyone decides they want to cross over to whatever party it is, it should be an automatic resignation and you should have a special election because it is not right. Whoever voted for them for whatever party they're in. And you decide in midstream that you want to cross over, that's not right. That's
Yeah,
not what it says to do.
I will say I think I saw that headline too, but I have not read the details on that yet. Do you remember or do you know which state this representative is from?
I want to say it's probably in Iowa somewhere. I have
Okay,
to go look it up.
it's not in Texas though, right? Yeah,
No, it's not Texas.
I do
But we
know
did
that.
have somebody down in Houston that did that because she got mad. She lost the race against who did she lose that race against? Sheila. She lost the race against Congressman what is her name? I think it's Congressman Sheila, the one who had just passed.
Okay.
Sheila Lee. And she decided that she wanted to switch over and become a Republican. And I'm like, I almost feel like anyone who does that, especially if you're holding a seat, you need to be blacklisted. You know,
Yeah, I will say
some
this.
kind of fine or something. You need to give your money back. Whoever donated to your campaign that was in whatever party, you need to give that money back.
Yeah, I will say this. There are some protections that we do have here in Texas, but it's dependent and contingent on the party. So
Mhm.
the protections go like this. And they actually don't take effect for these individuals that you're talking about because they switch off from the Democratic Party. But we do have protections in the Democratic Party by the Democratic Convention. We basically say that you cannot represent or be a nominee for the Democratic Party if you have voted in any Republican primary within the past year.
Mhm.
This is something that is actually hurts Democrats a little bit sometimes. Let me explain the edge case situation here. We unfortunately do have people who are legitimately Democratic voters who are leaning left of center, who consider themselves Democrats, a lot of these individuals, unfortunately, will vote in Republican primaries because they think to themselves that the area is such a red district that they have to vote for the lesser of the crazies in the Republican primary. However, primary elections in Texas are publicly open. Now, no one knows who you voted for, but the fact that you voted in a Republican primary versus a Democratic primary, that information is public. Not who you voted for, but when you went to the primary election and you were asked, do you want to vote in the Democratic primary or the Republican Party? You can only pick one. Which one you pick, that is public. If you ever choose to vote in a Republican primary, you lose the ability to be a precinct chair, and you lose the, I believe you also lose the ability to run for office as a Democratic nominee. So, because we have some Democrats who vote in Republican primaries, they sometimes will later on say, "Hey, I want to be a precinct chair for like the Denton County Democratic Party or the Collin County Democratic Party." And unfortunately, Jeremy Sickler or Dela Parker Mims will have to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, we looked you up in Van, and according to our bylaws, we cannot endorse you, and we cannot have you representing our party." Now, that only lasts for about a year. Now, that doesn't apply to these two individuals that you're talking about because, well, that's only to prevent Republicans from switching over into our side. I don't know if the Republican state convention, the Texas Republican state convention, has those rules too or not. If they do have those rules, then in theory you wouldn't be able to run for uh, as a Republican for a year, at least because our time limit is a year, at least on our side of the aisle. I would have to look up the bylaws for the Republican side, for the Republican state convention. But there are those protections. But again, they're not as the deadline is about 1 year. It should probably be longer. Uh, but yeah, I
Yeah.
would think that if you were to switch your parties, I would say that yes, you would have a moral obligation to resign. And the reason that you would have a moral obligation to resign if you switch parties while holding office is understand that the people who elected you as the nominee for the party in which you are. I mean, we have primaries, and you're not really considered to actually be a Democratic nominee or a Republican nominee until after your primary and after your runoff. I had a primary, and after my primary, I had a runoff, and then I finally advanced to the November ballot as a Democratic nominee. But after you go through all these trials, if I was to switch over to the Republican side, after a primary and after a runoff, and then after a general election, if I was elected, I mean that's spitting on the face of all those voters who voted for me.
It really
So
is.
yeah, I would say it's a
It
moral
really.
obligation to resign if you were to switch parties.
See, and it's the same thing here in Texas. We had a mayor, Eric Johnson, that did the same thing over in Dallas. He got elected as the Dallas mayor, and then right after, I don't even think it was a good 30 days, and he switched over to be a Republican. And I'm like, are you serious? They should have recalled that election. But it is Dallas. Dallas do things differently. But I'm quite sure the thought didn't not pass their mind. They probably thought about it. But it's a lot of loopholes people do. And if you don't like the party that you're in, okay, fine, go ahead and switch over. But you need to step down from the position that you're in, because that is not fair to the people who have voted for you. That's just my opinion on this, because I'm like, I feel like you should stay the course until you don't. But then too, if they're staying in a position and their mind frame is not within whatever party they're in, that their vote could hurt us, because we already got 12 people that's in the House. I think it's 12 in the House, and we got 4 people that was in the Senate that voted against the Democratic Party. And I believe every last one of them should be primary, and they know who they are. They should be primary. They voted to have Al Green to be silenced. They voted for some of the things that Trump wanted. They voted for that just so they can get something back. Who knows? I'm not going to conspiracy it, but it seems like, a lot of times when people like that switch over, or they vote certain ways, there's some type of money that may be involved in it. That's just my opinion. But we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, and especially in the Democratic Party, we got a lot of work to do, and we got to make sure that we do a better job in vetting these people and making sure they are truly who they say they are. I understand a lot of times, and we're not gonna sugarcoat it. There, we got issues in the Democrat Party, just like the Republicans have issues in their side. There's issues in this Democratic Party. And until we wind up coming together as one, we're going to continue on losing until we come together as one and stop all this inside bickering that's going on. Like I said, I can't say what's going on in the Republican Party because they right now they eating their own. I'm gonna let them continue on eating their own, but the Democrat need to pull together and we need to fight back and quit playing checkers and play some dang on chess or the one that's above that. We need to do better in how we strategize and work together as a team and as one, because that's the only way that we're going to succeed and the only way that we can say democracy if we all come together. Now, those that's on the other side of town and they see what's going on and they want to change, it's okay to go vote for what you believe in and vote for people that you wouldn't necessarily vote for because they have your values. And that's how I'm not going to take anybody's vote away. Do that. Vote for what you believe in, for your values, for your family, for your future. Because right now, the votes that was done in 2026, you see what happened.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's I will say this about the Democrats and Republicans. I you could say I don't know what's going on in the Republican Party. I'm sure they have their problems too. I guess because I'm so obsessed with politics, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Right Wing Watch or Knowledge Fight and all that. But I spent quite a bit of time studying the other side of the aisle, and I will say that you know I'm the Democratic Party has some issues of their own, and we do have some internal bickering, like you said. But I will tell you this for sure: relatively speaking, the Republican Party is far more fractured than we
Oh,
are.
yeah.
There's a civil war going on right now within the Republican Party, particularly in Texas against the Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes backed Republicans versus the old guard Republicans. But also, even outside of Texas in general, there's been this what some call alt right or alternative right individuals, people who actually are, I will call when I say I hate to use the word Nazi because it seems to be an overused term, but there are people who actually press and push forward anti-Semitism and racism, and they genuinely enjoy doing that. And a lot of these individuals are embedded within the Republican Party, and they are far fringe to the right, and they are not respected by the general populace of the Republican Party. But there's a very small minority of individuals within the Republican Party who are increasing their volume and they're getting louder and louder and louder. And that's kind of rubbing the Republican Party in certain ways. I'll give you an example. Jared Patterson, for example. Jared Patterson is my state House representative. He is a Republican, and he has been ranked as the quote number one conservative end quote according to the Dallas Morning News. And the Dallas Morning News gave this report of who is the number one conservative by ranking all 150 state house representatives according to their voting record. And they said, my horrible state house representative, Jared Patterson, is the most conservative. However, he did vote to impeach Ken Paxton. And he was interviewed by WFAA about this, saying, like, why did you impeach Ken Paxton? And he railed against Ken Paxton. He talked about some other representatives who he called, and I quote, anti-Republican. Now, he's I think we on the left would call these alt-right individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But he calls the number one conservative, according to the Dallas Morning News, is out here calling these. I believe he even referred to one of the Republican representatives as a quote, "these broken toys," in referencing people who are being paid by Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes. Because to refresh the memory of the audience, or at least for those who don't know, my horrible state house representative, he did once take money from Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes. But after Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes, the leader of their Defend Texas Liberty PAC, a
Mm-hmm.
former state house representative by the name of Jonathan Stickland, after Jonathan Stickland associated with Nick Fuentes and had like a 4 to 5 hour like lunch and meeting with Nick Fuentes, who is a well-known white supremacist. Nick Fuentes is a guy who's declared a holy war on Jews. Nick Fuentes
Yeah.
is the guy who went onto InfoWars with Alex Jones, sat next to Kanye West, and idolized Adolf Hitler. You know, when Jared Patterson realized he was being paid by individuals like that, he gave the money back And then he demanded that all the other Republican state House representatives do the same. But five of them did not. So we can see there's definitely a civil war within the Republican Party. Again, we do have bickerings within our Democratic Party. And
Mhm.
that does happen, and I think it's something to work on. But I will tell you this: like, relatively speaking, we are far more organized than the Republicans are, and relatively speaking, there's a much more greater fracture within the Republican Party on the right than there is on the left.
It is, and I have to agree with you on that part. I think if we, as the Democrat Party, if we can just mend fences and try to figure out who's going to lead us to the to the winning ticket, it's going to be hard. But we can. I think at the end of the day, we all usually just come together and we stand on the same value. We have the same things that we want to do, but we kind of like family. We gonna fight, but at the end of the day, we're gonna take care of each other. As always, like we're gonna go into this next one. I know the time is wrapping up on us, but I do want to talk about. I'm gonna skip over. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about this THC thing. So, of course, this THC that the House decided they wanted to pass this bill to ban THC products with restriction oversights, but then it went to the Senate and they're trying to send it. The Senate sent it back to the House, so now it's getting ready to go to Governor Greg Abbott's desk to where they want a complete ban on THC. And that little lieutenant governor of ours is the one, he says that he's worried about kids. So my thing is this: how can you be worried about kids and you're not worried about gun control? What happened down there in U Valley? You want to ban that. THC helps a lot of people, especially those who have cancer, those who have chronic illness, those who have chronic pain, those who have whatever issues that the illness that they have. Now, first of all, let's put that in a bubble by itself. You know, you got people that suffer with anxiety, depression. That helps them calm them down. And then you just have some parents that's just like, I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with these people. And that's how it's like alcohol. Hey, instead of me drinking myself to death, I'm gonna chew a gummy or whatever they do to just chill and mellow out so I can be able to get out and go face the world. Now, am I for it? I'm like this here. THC helps, it has a better need than alcohol does. And from what I'm understanding, is that the alcohol folks are pushing for this THC to be banned so they can get a better kickback. I'm like, wow, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah. I'll get to the kickback in a second, but first, I do want to preface this by reminding everyone that this whole thing started during the Reagan administration when they wanted ban marijuana, and the reason for that was basically just racist. A whole bunch of racist white people thought if they banned marijuana and weed, that it would hurt Latinos more than anyone else. I know it sounds stupid, but that's where this originated from. Now, in today's standards, what's really going on here is this helps the pharmaceutical companies very much because,
Mhm.
like you said, there are people with anxiety and things like that, and there are ways that the THC can help people, and it's also, I mean, some people just recreationally want to have a good time. Some people just want to smoke some marijuana. Marijuana is legal in quite a few different states now. It's not something that kills you as much as cigarettes do. It's not something that kills you as much as alcohol does. We have legalized alcohol because some people like to drink and just feel the buzz or get drunk because we live in a free country. And that's why alcohol is legal. Same thing with cigarettes. Cigarettes, I mean, I'll tell you, I was a cigarette smoker. It took me a long time to quit it. But, we do live in a free country. And I mean, in theory, I think it's obviously we have banned underage individuals from using cigarettes. We do live in a free country, but I think we should have conversations upon whether or not we should regulate cigarettes more. But I will say it is very telling. It's very telling when we're saying, all right, we're going to leave cigarettes alone. But that weed, though, that marijuana, oh, that's got to go. Not to mention, again, when I say this is Texas, by the way, uh, weed is actually already banned. We're talking about THC products here, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
it is very telling, that to sit here and say that this is to protect the children is it just falls on deaf ears with me, because you say, think of the children. Oh yes, think of those starving children that Republicans won't give free school lunches to. Think of the children, they say all the time. They're not
Right.
thinking of the children. They're thinking about the kickbacks, as you're saying, from the pharmaceutical companies,
Hmm.
because this is a type of thing with those who have anxiety and things like that, or those who have chronic pain, and when they can use THC or marijuana to self-medicate, and self-medicate with something that does not kill you like alcohol does not kill you like cigarettes does. This is a huge advantage to the pharmaceutical companies, and that's the kickbacks they're looking for, and that's really why Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is doing this. It's all so
You
that they
know
can
it's
line
going
their
to hurt
pockets.
the farmers too because they lied and said that they were going to back the farmers. So this is going to hurt them as well. This is what over 8 billion dollar worth of product that they're going to wind up dissolving, and it helps with our taxes and stuff. And it's like millions of people that's going to be affected because it helps them with their jobs. So it's going to be people that's going to be unemployed. There's going to be farmers that got all this product that they got to get rid of. So it's going to hurt. It's really going to hurt. It's going to hurt in so many different levels. And then those that have chronic illness, I'm going to tell you like this here, and I'm just going to keep it real. You may stop it and you may say, hey, I'm gonna go and charge you for having smoking or eating a edible or whatever the case may. People were doing this before you even made it legal. So all they're gonna do is take their stuff over to Oklahoma or New Mexico, wherever it's legal at, and they're gonna get it there and consume it there. You know, and they're gonna have their stuff. No matter what, you might say you don't want this, but it's still gonna wind up happening. The people gonna get it. Those that need it, they're gonna get it from wherever. You're not gonna stop it. So I'll say this here. I know Governor Abbott doesn't listen to my show, but I'm like this. You need to veto this because you might need it yourself. Because I'm quite sure you might have a hard day at work listening to us complain about what you ain't doing and all the name calls that we do because you don't be doing what you're supposed to do. Let's keep it real. But you might need to smoke you a little something or eat you an edible or eat you a cookie to chill. But at the end of the day, you need to veto this. This needs to be vetoed because there's a lot of people that's going to be affected. And plus, it's about the money too. They put money into Texas by having them able to do it. So why would you go ahead and support another state when you can do it here? It makes no sense, but I'm not the governor.
Yeah, yeah. You touched on another thing there that I almost forgot about. He's in a wheelchair now. I don't know if he's in any chronic pain or not, but it is really telling to see how compromised someone is when someone who's in a wheelchair. By the way, he used to be able to walk. By the way, for those who don't know, he was actually, there was a horrific accident when he was jogging.
Yeah,
I believe a tree actually fell on him, and
yeah,
paralyzed him, which is why he's in a wheelchair and will be for the rest of his life. You would think that someone in his position would want to support a healthcare system and support a medical necessary marijuana and things like that. But it is very telling to see how compromised these individuals are when they don't go for what should be their own best self interests.
right. Yeah. So hopefully he vetoes it, and we shall see. But we're gonna move to the next one. Oh my goodness. I can't make this up. Now, I don't know if you watch reality shows, but I do. One of my favorite ones, which is probably gonna wind up getting canceled, is Real Housewives of Atlanta. So I love watching them, and I like watching The Bachelors and stuff. I like those things. But we have a reality person that was sent. He and his wife got sentenced for prison for tax evasion, and they still got to pay a lot of money back. But Trump decided he wanted to pardon them, and not only did he pardon the Christies, he pardoned quite a few people. So I'm like, what is going on with all these partners? The people that you, why don't you go get that Garcia guy that's over in El Salvador while you pardon these people that actually was stealing, didn't want to pay their taxes? But then again, you do have a lot of charges against you. So I guess birds of feathers flock together. I don't know. I can't make this stuff up. But it's like, to me, it's a political nightmare for you to be sitting up here pardoning people that need to be serving a time. So what are you going to do next? Are you going to pardon P. Diddy? Because he need to be locked up and stay wherever he's at. But, it's
Oh,
just,
Stephanie, please don't jinx it. Please do not jinx it. No, I mean he is. Well, this is interesting because I'm not too informed upon. I believe the name was Todd and Julie Chrisley. Am I pronouncing that right?
yes.
I don't really
Obviously.
follow or watch reality TV myself, so I'm not too well informed on this. But I will say one of the things that went through my head is, after reading up on who these guys were, I was thinking, does Trump just not care, or is it fun? And then I realized, oh, well, technically he's a lame duck. But I mean, he has talked about trying to run for a third term, but in theory, he should be a lame duck. And as a lame duck, he can shoot by the hip and do whatever he wants because, in theory, he's going to be out after this session. So he can do whatever he wants willy nilly. And I think perhaps maybe as a celebrity himself, because I mean, as much as I don't like him, I do have to admit Donald Trump was a celebrity. I mean, sometimes tend to forget until I rewatch the Home Alone movie series. He was on Home Alone. I think it was the second one. There's
Yeah,
quite a
he was
few
on a
movies
lot
actually he's
of
been
shows.
on, but he's a celebrity, and so when he looks at these other individuals, it could be that he sees himself. Donald Trump very much works based upon his own ego. So when he sees other people who are these TV celebrities or whoever they are, maybe he sees himself a bit, and maybe because he is a convicted felon himself. Maybe this is why he does hand out pardons willy nilly though. I will say it's actually not to plug this or anything because I don't want to go off on a tangent, but just briefly, I will say it's actually not the worst pardon that he's done. I would say the worst pardon that he was done was the January 6th rioters. Not just the
Oh,
fact that it was
yes.
all of them, but a particular man by the name of Jake Lang. Are you familiar with Jake Lang? He's
I
Yeah, so Jake Lang was a January 6th rioter. He was filmed, I think, trying to assault police officers with a ladder.
yes.
But after Jake Lang was pardoned by Donald Trump, he went back to Florida from whence he came. And because Marco Rubio was tapped by the Trump administration, now there is a vacancy for the Floridian Congressional Senate. And so Jake Lang is now running for Congress to be a senator. He's a former January 6th rioter who's running for the Congressional Senate right now. And he recently came to Frisco, Texas. The reason he came to Frisco, Texas is because, unfortunately, there was a stabbing incident at one of our Frisco schools, named by Mr. Medcalf, Justin Medcalf, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this guy, Jake Lang, came here, and his whole slogan was to, quote, protect white America, end quote. He's talked about how, quote, white America is angry about the black violence that is due onto us, end quote. He has a Protect White America website, and it's blatantly racist. And he came all the way to Frisco, Texas, just to perform this racist tirade of his. You know, these are the type of individuals that Donald Trump is pardoning. So, I mean, not to derail, or because I know we're talking about Todd and Julie Chrisley right now, but yeah, in terms of the subject of Trump's pardons, boy, oh boy, I mean, this one's exhausting with Todd and Julie. But I definitely will want to plug Jake Lang real quick and say, yeah, I think that might have been one of the worst uh, pardons that Trump has done there. This is just cartoonish. The Todd and Julie thing is just basically him, just I think, working off his own ego, looking at others, because Trump clearly has a what's it called, a syndrome. It's a type of syndrome of feeling like you're always attacked, a victim syndrome.
Victim. Mm-hmm.
And so he wants to look at others who look like him, like these other celebrities. He wants to say, "Oh, I was prosecuted, uh, and I'm going to save these other individuals who are like me." He wants to brand himself a savior, and I think he's seeing himself in other individuals because he is a type of shallow individual who does you know, who works like with this type of 5-year-old mentality.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I totally agree with you on that, Dale. You know, he acts like a 5-year old, and to me, in a way, he acts like a bitter ex. You know, somebody that's mad because they didn't get their way, even though they got the prize, but they're still mad. So I'm gonna take it out on everybody, and I'm just gonna pardon everybody. He's like the Oprah Winfrey of pardon. You know, you get a car, you get a car. Next, you know, I'm like, if you're gonna pardon somebody, go ahead and pardon the Tiger King guy. Go pardon him.
Tiger King was actually asking for that. Also, but before I forget, I see that there's a Eugene Scott commented saying, representatives in the House and the Senate need to have the same health care that we have. Then they'll understand health care. I like that.
Ooh,
That was a,
don't even get me started on that, because I feel like when they decide to shut the government down, that they don't get paid either. But you know, they are protected, and that's something that needs to change. They
yeah.
don't. They shouldn't get paid. So maybe they'll think about the decisions that they make about closing the government down. You know, that's crazy. And I agree with you. They need the same kind of insurance we get, but you know that ain't gonna happen. They'll never vote that one in. But thanks for putting that comment up there.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we don't. It is 8:05, y'all, and we have talked about a lot of stuff and probably over talk. But thank y'all for tuning in to Let's Talk About It stuff. Please make sure that you like and share and subscribe to this talk show, because we're trying to make sure that we inform people about what's going on. And I must make sure that we come back and talk about what's going on in Tarrant County as well. There's a lot of craziness that's going on, but we're going to go back and talk about that on next week, because I'm quite sure it's going to be more content that we'll be adding to this, because that's an ongoing thing. That's another little narcissist person, that Tim O'Reilly O'Hara guy that's over in Tarrant County. I'm like, when is his position up? They need to go ahead and run against him and get him out of there, because he's gerrymandering precinct 2, trying to get rid of Commissioner Simmons on that. But we're going to definitely come back and talk about that on next Wednesday. So thank you, Dell, for coming on today, and we'll see you next week. Y'all be good, be blessed, and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next week on Let's Talk About Stuff at 7 p.m. Y'all have a good night.
have a good night.